Now, I have to confess, I was originally going to ignore this. And why? Because it was predicated on pure speculation. We didn't really know a whole lot, and I just didn't think it was worth it. But at this stage of the game, lords and ladies, it seems fairly certain that something big is going on with this statue that has been placed in the Mojave Desert in the middle of nowhere in the United States. You see, this statue is meant to represent some game, and it has been teased at by various people, Geoff Keighly being the primary person who has teased this. And because of this, people have speculated wildly about the true nature of the origin of this statue. Now, let's say at the outset, it's obvious that this statue has required a lot of work to manufacture, to produce, to sculpt. This is a big deal. This statue clearly required work, effort, and probably a lot of artistic skill, and therefore a lot of money. And as I said, people were speculating wildly about this. Is it God of War? Is it Elder Scrolls? Is it something completely different? But now it seems to be the case that the cat is out of the bag. This is almost certainly a tease at Divinity. Now, Divinity, if you don't know and have been living under a rock, in its totality as an IP, is a Larian property. Larian created the Divinity series. There have been a number of games over the years. Probably Divinity Original Sin and Original Sin 2 are the most popular ones, at least in terms of people's familiarity. And the reason why we believe this is because, well, the evidence seems incontrovertible at this stage. A number of things have surfaced and come to light that pretty much prove it. Now, as you can see on the screen, we have this particular image, which lines up with what we see with the statue almost perfectly. We have the fact that a trademark was filed with a law firm that Larian has traditionally worked with within Europe, specifically within Germany. And it just makes sense that after Larian had finished Baldur's Gate 3, they would return to their own proper IP. Now, it is true, as you can see on the screen, that the developers themselves have denied this is related to Divinity Original Sin 3, as in this is not going to be the third game in the series in all likelihood, although people are bending over backwards to sort of interpret the semantics of the statement, as in, this is not a new Divinity Original Sin 3. Okay, I guess you could argue that a new Divinity Original Sin 3 doesn't really make sense because there never has been a 3, but it's probably just sloppily worded. People sometimes write things and say things that are not exactly perfectly clear. I don't think this is Divinity Original Sin 3 at all. I think this has been basically confirmed. However, it is almost certainly a property, a game within the Divinity series, because you don't have just Divinity Original Sin, you have a whole bunch of these games. Indeed, if you go by chronological release time, what you have is Divine Divinity, which comes out in 2002. This is an isometric action RPG. Then you have Beyond Divinity, which comes out in 2004. Then you have Divinity 2 Ego Draconis, which comes out in 2009. Then you have Divinity Original Sin 1, comes out in 2014. And then, of course, in 2017, Divinity Original Sin 2. And you have some spin-offs as well. Divinity Dragon Commander came out in 2013. And also a game that was canceled called Divinity Fallen Heroes. So to my mind, given these data, this doesn't have to be at all Divinity Original Sin 3. It can be a completely new entry in the Divinity series with its own kind of standalone spot in the history of Divinity games. And when the developer says it's not Original Sin 3, well, that doesn't deny or negate the possibility that it's in fact a Divinity game. Now, obviously, this makes tons of sense given the visuals that you can see that are lined up perfectly and the trademark filing. And on top of that, it seems to be the case that a Divinity Original Sin 2 Definitive Edition for PlayStation has also been announced, which coincides with this trademark filing and this massive statue that has been placed randomly in the Mojave Desert. So what is this? Yeah, it's almost certainly a Divinity game, and it probably will be announced, at least in some way, shape, or form, maybe in a trailer, I would argue, probably in a trailer, at the Game Awards. What does this mean in terms of the greater landscape of games? Well, it means that Larian is back in business, and they have been. But it's important to note that Larian has been working on 2 games. They've said as much, at least Sven has said as much. This game probably and I believe, based on hints in the past, a sci-fi game simultaneously. So they're working on 2 different titles. They're that big now. I think they have something like 500 to 600 developers in total at this stage, and this is one of the games. And returning to the roots makes perfect sense. So this is definitely something to get excited about, there's no question. I'd have to say for my part, and I know this is a bit of a hot take, it's probably not a popular opinion, although I have always liked Divinity to some degree, it is not my favorite setting by any means within the context of CRPGs or RPGs more broadly. And part of this is simply due to something that my longtime subscriber, Lord Heck of the Commonwealth, has mentioned. And Divinity's lore background, as in the lore of the setting, is very piecemeal. It's not exactly chronological and well put together. You get snippets of different time periods. It exists for sure, but it's not at the same level or depth of, say, Dungeons and Dragons or other IPs out there, such as Pathfinder or 40K. And so, whilst the lore is there, it tends to be very scattershot and fractured. And adding to that, you have this issue, and I have to be honest, of it being very goofy. I've always found Divinity to be fairly goofy. This kind of humor that isn't super funny, but kind of is a little bit funny. But it's just very hard to take Divinity as a setting seriously. Now, there are serious moments. Obviously, I played both Original Sin and Original Sin 2 pretty thoroughly. But by and large, it's not a super serious series. And there's tons of humor and, like I said, just goofiness. That's the word. It's a goofy series. So I find it difficult to get into it. Of course, one thing Larian excels at, there's no question, is environmental interaction vis-a-vis combat. That's going to be huge, almost certainly. And overall, I think it's going to be, whatever it turns out to be exactly, a very cool and fun game, Divinity or otherwise. My only concern, I would say, apart from the goofiness and the lack of consistent and long-term established lore, is, how should I put it? I'll just be blunt. Larian's writing is okay, it's serviceable, but it's not knock it out of the park amazing. And I don't know if Larian can ever get to that level along the lines of a Chris Avallone and other writers where it's just really top-notch writing and it really carries the story and you're really involved and you feel like, wow, this is it. It's been okay. I think Baldur's Gate 3 has decent writing, but it's nothing, like I said, that knocks it out of the park. It's nothing where you think, wow, this is amazing writing. What a truly tragic and amazing story, or this is so compelling. And this has fundamentally been, in my opinion, Larian's biggest issue over the years. If Larian somehow manages to course correct and employ better writers, or the writers improve somehow, then yeah, this could be a 10 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10. It's entirely possible. And again, Larian has issues with final chapters. Baldur's Gate 3 has an issue with Act 3 in terms of sort of closing up the story. It's just not as compelling as the first act or the second act. I think, broadly speaking, most people agree. The same is true of Divinity Original Sin 2 and the final act. And so, if Larian can work on these weaknesses and improve there, then I think it will be an incredible experience. Even if they don't, Larian is just the master of really cool turn-based CRPG combat with amazing environmental interactions, and I think that is almost certainly slated to come back in full force on a level, frankly speaking, we've never seen before. So even if this Divinity game just turns out to be super fun combat with a very mediocre, okay story, that should be enough to keep us occupied for quite some time to come. In my view, I think Baldur's Gate 3 offers some of the most fun combat out there, and that is the game's strong suit, in addition to some other things, but broadly speaking, it comes down to how fun the combat is. And I think at the end of the day, that is Larian's strong suit, the combat, and how they integrate the environment with magic and what have you. So that's almost certainly going to be in, and that's super cool. But we won't know for sure until they announce things. If they do, this is not 100%, this is more like 90% plus at the Game Awards. And I won't be able to talk about until the next day because the Game Awards takes place very, very late, and the Americans, for whatever reason, have chosen to do this in the evening time, which will be our morning time in Europe. So I will cover all of this, of course, the next day, that is Friday, the 12th of December in the year of Zeus. All that said, I think this is extremely interesting, extremely exciting. I'm looking forward to it, and I definitely will be talking about it more when I can, assuming it turns out to be what we think it is. So, in summary, not Divinity Original Sin 3, but almost certainly definitively a game set in the Divinity series, maybe a spin-off, maybe something entirely new. And I should point out something as a final point to be made. I think maybe only Larian, and specifically Sven Finke, would be so, I don't know, brazen and weird in a positive way so as to put a giant statue in the Mojave Desert as a teaser for a game. This seems very much like something Sven and Larian would do, so again, we're almost certain at this stage. But as always, thank you for tuning in, and if you like my content, you like my takes, you can leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe. It is very much appreciated, as it really helps out the channel, and I will check you out next time. Take care. Hopefully, in all likelihood, after the Game Awards, a lot to cover. See you then.